Great. It's showing me that we're live on YouTube,
Wonderful.
that we're also live on Facebook. So let me double check that it's not lying to me. Okay, we will go ahead and get started in an effort to stay on time and maximize the time that we have with our candidates. I want to give you all a quick good morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you are tuning into this broadcast. And thank you for taking the time really to learn more about our candidates through these candidate broadcasts. I am Juliette Abdel, your Westminster Chamber President and CEO, and I would like to invite you, if you haven't already done so, to hit the like button on this page. Make sure you're following it if you're on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed to our channel. That way you can see when we post out any future content. The other ask I have of you is to hit the share button on this video so others in your network can see that we are live with a candidate, can also be as informed as you are, and maybe they have the time to join us this morning and hear from them directly. Please note that there is a comment section on this video. The comment section is available to you at any point in time. You can share with us good morning pleasantries. You can share with us your thoughts, your feelings. You can also ask us questions into the chat section. Know that the questions that we have were pre-submitted questions. They are not questions that were provided to any of the candidates in advance. So they know them as much as you do, which is that you don't know them at all. The questions that you do type to me, if we do go through all of the pre-submitted questions, we'll be able to take from you those questions, of course. And the candidate has about 45 seconds or less to answer the question, the rapid-fired question for us, and be able to give us their perspective. I'm very excited to have with me Ed Brady. Thank you so much for being on here with me this morning.
Good afternoon, Juliette and Westminster Chamber. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Well, it looks like we already have a quick comment that's come through to us from Parker. Good morning to you, Parker. I see Jody and Arya. Thank you both for tuning in with us on our broadcast. This broadcast kicks off our county offices, specifically the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. And with that, and right as I was saying that, your computer kind of flickered a little bit. That was a weird little effect. But with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ed to share a few words, maybe make an opening statement or introduction to you all about who he is.
Yeah, well, thank you, Juliette. Again, my name's Ed Brady. I'm a deputy chief with the Arvada Police Department, and I'm running for Jefferson County Sheriff. But before I'm a deputy chief, I'm a husband and a father. My wife, Kathleen, and I have been married nearly 30 years. We've raised our 4 children here in Jefferson County. She's a principal with Jeffco schools, and we just had our first grandchild about 2 weeks ago, so we're very excited about that. I've come up through the ranks of the Arvada Police Department over the last 28 years. Officer, detective, sergeant, commander, and now a deputy chief where I've been for the last 8 years. I've helped lead the Arvada Police Department through the Great Recession, officer-involved shootings, 2 officer deaths, a pandemic, and staffing shortages. Our officers are dealing with 5 things on the street every day. They're dealing with people who are involved with drugs. Those people go out and steal cars. Last year, we had about 37,000 cars stolen. Next year, it'll be well in the 40,000s. And 85% of those cars are used to commit other crimes. They go out and they do retail theft, smash and grabs, or burglaries. Almost without exception, we're seeing those people that have extensive criminal histories, and we're seeing more and more guns in the hands of criminals. Our officers are also dealing with the chronically homeless, people who have mental health and drug addictions. We have a unit here that works with our businesses and the homeless community called CORE. And in 2019, they encountered about 2,500 encounters with the homeless community. Last year, it was over 3,800. So it's certainly an issue for our community. And if you've ever thought about it, crime is a tax. Crime is a tax that costs this state $27 billion in 2020. That's $4,700 per Coloradan. It's a tax that costs businesses because when people are afraid to go out and shop, they're just going to order on Amazon, and that impacts local businesses. And so there's a few things as a sheriff that I can do to impact that. The first is to open up the jail or get our staffing resources up to speed. Funding has been allocated for next year to house the people who are victimizing our community. The second is to provide mental health, drug, and alcohol counseling to those that are incarcerated in the jail. Be able to get our volunteers back in there, start opening our behavioral health unit or our veterans housing, because the vast majority of people that go to the county jail will come back to society, and we need to help them get back on their feet and reintegrate back into society to be healthy and productive citizens. And so those are a few things that we've done. I've actually wrote an article about what to do about the chronically homeless, where I advocate for more resources for those that are incarcerated for mental health, drug, and alcohol counseling. So that's my opening remarks. Juliet, thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to the next few minutes to have a conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself and your background and kind of your focus areas for this position. We'll dive right into it. Of course, these are the rapid fire questions. We'll display them on the screen. I'll read them for our candidate. There'll be 45 seconds for him to answer it before we transition to the next question. This question says that the position of sheriff requires tremendous leadership ability. How have you developed your leadership skills throughout your career?
Well, the sheriff's office is the largest department in the county, and I've been very fortunate here at Arvada to have some great leadership development. I've been on command staff since 2007. I worked my way up to deputy chief where I am now. I've also taught a class called Leadership in Police Organizations, taught well over 100 leaders in the law enforcement community over a 3-week course that I've taught several of them up at the Westminster Police Department, as a matter of fact. So my experience here at the Arvada Police Department, I've had great training. I attended an executive development course called Senior Management Institute for Police in Boston. Also attended a 10-week course called Police School of Staff and Command through Northwestern University. And of course, I've got my master's degree in public administration. So I have a combination of experience and then academics to help prepare me for this role.
Thank you for answering that. I do see Emilio and Brian Head on here with me. Thank you both for joining in. This question comes to you, and it is asking you how to address some recruitment efforts. Many law enforcement agencies in the area are understaffed, and the recruiting qualified officers is becoming increasingly difficult. How would you address this problem?
Recruitment is a big issue in the law enforcement community, not just in Jefferson County, but across the state. And I would say that almost all are understaffed. It's a nationwide issue. I think that was born out of the defund the police movement and some of the narrative that started in 2020 that impacted that. And so I wish there was a magic answer. I think one of the first things that an agency can do is believe and support the mission of the officers that go out there every day to do the work. I'm honored to have the endorsement of our Fraternal Order of Police here in Arvada, along with the State Employees Lodge for the FOP. So, one, believing in the mission. And then we need to do active recruiting because this is an honorable profession. And to be able to show the community and those that might be interested in it, just how impactful it can be to a community, how helpful it can be, I think will go a long way in recruiting new recruits to the profession.
Thank you for that. And as this next question is loading up, we'll go ahead and pull up that quick good afternoon remark for us and transition over to this next question. And you slightly alluded to this when you shared that there were issues kind of over the last couple of years, but much has been said over the last few years about law enforcement and its relationship with our minority communities. How would you work with those communities to rebuild trust?
Well, I think our trust here in Jefferson County and Arvada in particular began well back in the 1980s when we became CALEA accredited. CLIA is a Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agency, and it requires that agency live up to about 480 standards. Arvada was the first in the state, and other agencies, including Jefferson County, Lakewood, Golden, Wheat Ridge, have followed suit. And as part of that accreditation, there are a number of things that we do to help build that trust. The first is every year we analyze our arrest and traffic data to make sure that we're not disparate in the issuance of summons to any one particular group. The second thing we do is we compare our employee body to that of our community to make sure that we're representative of the community that we serve. And when we find that if we're low in certain areas, we then market and advertise in areas to try to build up so that we are a true representative of our community. We have an anti-bias hotline that people can call should they feel that they were treated unethically or disparately because of their race, religion, or anything in that regards. And then, so we have that hotline. And then lastly, we provide training, and we've done this for the last 20 years to our officers to make sure that we're not engaging in any biases that would impact our decision making.
Thank you for that answer. This next question relates to crime rates, that they're exploding across Colorado. How would you work to reverse these trends and keep our communities safe?
Crime really has exploded across Colorado. I mean, over the last 10 years, crime's increased by 28%. We have record high fentanyl overdose deaths. The murder rate's more than doubled. And as I mentioned earlier, we had over 37,000 cars stolen last year. So it is a big, and I think there's a number of things as a sheriff that you can do. One is we have a sector-based policing model here in Arvada, and I would look to see how that would fit in the sheriff's model. But it's essentially a data-driven approaches to looking at our crime and traffic issues to see where we can deploy resources to make sure that they're impacting the areas we want them to impact. The second is to be a voice for common sense legislation that's going to actually make our community safer and not less safe. Those are just a couple things that as a sheriff I could do.
Thank you. You know, these are big issues that we're trying to address in such a short period of time. This next question is asking you if you consider yourself to have good morals and integrity, and why.
Well, I would like to think that I do. Maybe the best people to ask are the people who know me the best, but I try to live my life dedicated to the Lord, to my family, and to our community. I've served here at the Arvada Police Department for the last 28 years, took an oath of office to protect this community, and have done so ever since. I live for my family. My family is my number one priority. I have 4 children, ages 24 down to 14. We've raised them to be good kids, and if there's any reflection on me, I would ask that you look at them because I'm extremely proud of them and what they've accomplished.
Thank you. What is the number one thing that needs to be changed in the sheriff's office?
Well, thank you for that question. It is one that I don't know that I can answer immediately. Some people have asked me, what are the number one things that you're going to change when you go up there? I'm not sure that I have a number one thing, but I do know, and I have thought through a process about how I'm going to identify what needs to be changed immediately up there, or that we need to transition to, I should say. I do know that there's obviously the recruiting issue that we talked about. We need to get the sheriff's office fully staffed so that we can protect the community in our law enforcement operations and also in the jail. Health and wellness is always very important for our officers these days, especially given the increased violence that we're seeing in the community. So looking to programs them and their needs there. So those are, I'm going to look at a process to what to move to, and those are a couple areas that come to mind offhand.
The good thing is this next question is very closely related, so you could parlay the answer to it, and that's what you plan to accomplish in the first 30 days, let alone the first 90 days.
Right. You know, one of the risks, there's a theory out there called the Chesterton's Gate. A person comes across a gate in the middle of the road, and they just say, remove that. but they never ask, well, why was that gate put there in the first place? And so my task as a new sheriff will be to go in there to look at systems and processes to see where we can improve, but also ask the questions, why were these processes put in the first place? And so I will certainly be seeking feedback from all the units, all the employees within the department, coming up with areas that they've identified as most important, look to see how we can improve community safety and open up the jail, come forward with a comprehensive plan, a strategic plan like we've done here at the Arvada Police Department ever since I began, and start moving forward with those initiatives over the next 90, after the first 90 days.
Thank you for sharing that. This next question asks, what motivates you to take on this role?
I love Jefferson County. As I mentioned earlier, my wife Kathleen and I have raised our 4 kids here. This is where we've attended church. This is where I've coached softball and baseball. It's where I've worked in Arvada and where she's worked in Jefferson County schools for her for almost the last 30 years. And so I want to make Jeffco safe. I think Sheriff Schrader's done an outstanding job. And when I knew that he was term limited, I wanted to keep that seat in good hands, and I thought it would be a role I could take on to help protect this community. Like I said, implement approaches that will improve community safety and also stand for legislation that's going to make this community safer.
We have time for a couple more questions before we start closing out. This next question asks how you will plan to improve the department and how they deal with people with mental disorders. If I did not botch that question, how would you improve the department, how the department deals with people with mental disorders?
Yeah, so I think we've done it very well here at the Arvada Police Department, as I believe the sheriff's office has too. So we have officers that are trained in crisis intervention training, CIT training. It's a week-long class to deal with people who are in the midst of a mental health crisis and how we can work with them. We also have a co-responder model where we deploy civilians who have even more training out there, and really with the hopes of getting intervention so that we don't have to keep going back to the same person over and over because they continue to suffer from mental health crisis. So we can get them the help they need. So as a sheriff, I would ensure that our officers or deputies in that case have CIT training, to try to get as many to them as possible, and then a good co-responder model. And then also advocating for more mental health and alcohol and drug treatment for people who are incarcerated so that they can come back to society better than when they went into the jail.
Thank you so much for answering that. I do also see Mayor Pro Tem DeMont on here with us. Thank you for hopping back on and joining us on this broadcast. And this is our final question before we wrap up. What do you feel is the duty of the sheriff's office?
Yeah, well, that's a big question in just a few words, right? Well, the sheriff is there to protect the people, to protect people's individual rights, to make our community safer. Stand for legislation which will actually make our community safer. The sheriff is obviously in charge of the county jail and running a highly professional, as it is at the sheriff's office now, jail that gets inmates the help they need to come back into society. And then, of course, the sheriff is the fire warden. We all saw the devastation that the Marshall Fire caused, and there's a high-risk area in the mountain community in Jefferson County. And being prepared should or when that day comes to Jefferson County so that we can respond quickly and in a coordinated manner with our fire department brethren.
Thank you for answering that. Now, I know this was a very quick candidate broadcast for each of you to be tuned into. So what we've done is include the campaign page into the comment section here on both our Facebook and YouTube channel. Please do follow this link and learn more about the individual candidate more in depth and in detail, and reach out if you have questions before our elections. I want to thank, of course, all of you that are tuned in and those of you that have shared and will continue to share in the future. And for Ed for being on here with us. I know that as a candidate, there are numerous things that you are invited to and welcomed at, and we appreciate you for taking up our invitation and sharing more about yourself with us this morning.
Well, thank you.
Do you have a closing statement before I cut you off?
Well, thank you for having me. That was a quick Q&A, so a lot of good information got out, though. So, again, my name's Ed Brady. I'm a deputy chief with the Arvada Police Department. You know, when I started my career, my motivation was to go out and to stop people from victimizing other people. And now that I've progressed through the ranks of the organization, my motivation is to build a highly professional, capable, trustworthy organization that allows our officers to go out there and protect our community, that allows them to go out there and help our community. One that other organizations look to and say, boy, you know, they're doing it right. And I've been honored to be in this profession. And while I'm busy running this organization, there are men and women out there who are heroes protecting our community every day. I'm running to keep Jefferson County safe. Um, I love Jefferson County, as I mentioned, and I want to protect it. I want to protect our schools. I mentioned my wife is a principal, and my 4 kids have attended Jeffco schools, and I want to make sure that they're well protected. I want to make sure that businesses are thriving. As I mentioned, crime is a tax, and when businesses thrive, our whole community thrive. And I want to stand up for the men and women in blue that are protecting our communities. I'm humbled to have the endorsements of so many leaders throughout Jefferson County, to include the mayors of Arvada, Westminster, Lakewood, our last 2 sheriffs, the former police chiefs from Arvada, Westminster, and the retired chief from Lakewood. So I'm very humbled to have their endorsements, and I'm looking forward to this opportunity. You can learn more about me at bradyforsheriff.com. I've written a couple articles, and I've also given several radio interviews that you can listen to. So Juliet, Westminster Chamber, thank you for having me today. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you once again for being on here and for wrapping our conversation up. We are going to end this broadcast for those of you that are tuned in or just started tuning in. I do see you, Commissioner Tracy Krebsarp. Thank you for being on here with us. We are going to close this one out, and we'll be back in about 5 to 7 minutes. So please be sure to refresh the page and join us for our next candidate. Ed, I hope you have a terrific rest of your day, that it runs smoothly, and I look forward to seeing you after elections in November.
All right. Thank you, Juliet.
Thank you.